So, a Star Trek video popped up in my YouTube feed the other day. It's a clip from something I haven't watched in a while. It was the original ending for Star Trek Insurrection, the third Next Generation movie. Now, I do intend to eventually get around to doing a video on the original story for Insurrection, which was quite a bit different in several ways. Writer Michael Piller wanted to do a kind of Heart of Darkness Star Trek story that involved a former Academy friend of Picard, as well as many of the elements of Star Trek Insurrection, along with the Fountain of Youth element. The Romulans were also supposed to be in there instead of the Sona. If you read his book, Fade In, From Idea to Final Draft, The Writing of Star Trek Insurrection, it explains the background and development of the film and how it radically changed due to studio input, as well as input from Rick Berman and Patrick Stewart. The final film we ended up getting was certainly different in many ways, and it wasn't what Michael Piller had originally intended. But even that being said, I don't think Piller's original story would necessarily have been great either. I actually think the core issue with Insurrection wasn't all of the changes made during the script development phase, but with the core concept itself. The central premise of the story remained intact, and it didn't really work in the final cut. The issue wasn't with a lot of the more cosmetic changes that were made. The issue was, I believe, that the premise wasn't strong enough to begin with. A lot of the changes outlined in the book Fade In actually made a lot of logical sense to me. I can understand why they decided to make the changes they did. Anyway, that's all for another video down the track, because unlike the original story ideas for Star Trek II, VI, and Star Trek First Contact, Insurrection's production development history is a much bigger and more interesting topic, and I will do a breakdown of that at some point. Now, for this video, I wanted to focus on the film's final climactic sequence, because when I watched the clip on YouTube of the original ending, there were lots of people in the comments saying that the original ending would have been better, and that they should have left it as it was, and I disagree. It would have been different, certainly, but not better, and I will explain why. So, once again, it's Picard versus Ruafo on the Injector Collector. But in the original ending, the Enterprise doesn't fly in to Picard's rescue just as the Collector explodes. In fact, in the original ending, the Collector doesn't explode at all. The original ending saw Ruafo flying off in the Injector Pod into the Baku planet's metaphasic rings, and then becoming gradually younger and younger in a motion control sequence with F. Murray Abraham shedding his makeup, and then we see a younger actor as Ruafo, and then they get younger again. So he gets younger and younger until we fade to white, and then the film concludes, much as it did, with the Enterprise crew on the Baku planet saying their goodbyes. So that was the original ending. Now, when you watch this original ending, you can see that it doesn't have completed visual effects. The morph transition effect of Ruafo getting progressively younger isn't finished, and the space shots aren't in there, but you get the general idea from the deleted scene. Now, the point of Ruafo getting younger and younger was to show the effects of the radiation, and the inference is that he was going to keep getting younger until he would basically get so young that he would revert to a baby and then cease to exist. And this is what we were supposed to believe. Now, it's not actually on screen, that's the problem. So this was supposed to be how Ruafo was going to die in the movie originally. Now, this ending certainly makes sense from the point of view of paying off Ruafo's personal story arc and also the theme of the movie, the Fountain of Eternal Youth. But it is an interesting example, actually, of how an ending can be thematically consistent with a film story, and yet not really work as a satisfying ending. On the Insurrection DVD coverage, Peter Lauritsen said that after test screenings, the studio felt that the ending was too soft and that they needed more of a bang ending. Now, I don't think the final ending was great either, but it was preferable to the original one. People can disagree, but if you edit out the final ending and reinsert the original one, you'll quickly realize that it's a short, low-energy, weak climax, and the film just sort of limps to an end. It just doesn't work with the pacing of the movie. And it may have been visually interesting and a more suitable and better ending for Ruafo's character, but it wasn't a better ending for the film overall. And that's why it's such an interesting problem. It's not exciting or dramatic enough. However, there was another problem with the original ending, and it was revealed from the test screenings to the original cut of the movie. Now, to address this, I'm going to include a quote from Michael Piller from his book Fade In. He says, "And there was a general consensus that the ending lacked excitement. I thought the ending was hard to judge because many opticals were missing. But I had to admit that one big visual effect that was in the picture didn't really work very well. Ruafo's doomed de-aging morph that I hoped would pack a wallop didn't. Some members of the focus group weren't even sure he'd been killed." So, this is a major issue with the original ending. Right, so Michael Piller hoped that this ending was going to pack a wallop, but it didn't. Just didn't work. Ruafo got much younger, but it wasn't clear if his de-aging was simply going to stop when he reached the age of a young man, or if it was going to continue until he ceased to exist. After all we see is him transforming into a younger man, and then it fades to white. The last thing we would want would be for the credits to roll and be sitting there in the cinema wondering, so what happened to the bad guy on the injector thing? So they spent a few $1 million and introduced a reworked ending, bringing back the Enterprise E and having it face off against the Sona command ship, and then swoop in and save Picard in the nick of time, beaming him away just before the collector explodes. So the new ending was a bit of a cliched crash bang ending, but at least it's more of a definitive exclamation point rather than the question mark that the original ending was. I will say that it doesn't make much sense as to why Ruafo wasn't also beamed up by the Enterprise. I mean, that's the humanitarian Star Trek thing to do, after all, right? To bring the bad guy to justice rather than just letting him die in such a manner. So, to conclude, neither ending to Star Trek Insurrection is particularly good, but the original ending didn't have the impact needed to serve as a satisfying conclusion to a sci-fi action movie. I'll leave it there for now. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe for more. Hit that like button, share this video. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.